Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to create this cute crop top. I'll be helping you with the step-by-step procedure and also show you all the mistakes that I made during the creation so that you can avoid those mistakes. Let's get into the making. Take your basic bodice pattern and place it on the folded paper pattern. Mark 5.5 inches from the folded end, and we are doing this to create the gathers on your chest area. Now outline the bodice. Measure how deep you want your neckline and mark it on the pattern. Extend the lines and write the measurement on the pattern for your future use. At this point, I realized that I wanted to make the first section of the top a little shorter, and hence I marked the length I wanted. To get the right length, measure from your shoulders to your underbust and mark it on the pattern. Now go ahead and cut your pattern. We are going to follow the same steps for the sleeves as well. Take your basic sleeve pattern, place it on the folded paper pattern. From the folded end, leave up to 3 to 4 inches for the gathered sleeve. You can increase or decrease the distance as per your preference. Trace the sleeve pattern up to your desired length. Now from the side seam area, draw a straight line till the sleeve end for a loose fit. For the front armhole area, trace the inner line of the pattern and cut it. The first mistake that I made was selecting a fabric which was not enough to create the entire top. So to make that work, I needed to shorten the length of the sleeve. Place the pattern you created on the fabric. Go ahead and trace your front borders. I have unpinned the fabric pattern here so that I could trace the back borders as well. And here was my mistake number 2. I cut the back fabric as same as the front section. However, I did not want the gathers for the back section. So to rectify this, I took the front borders that I created and folded the excess pattern, that was the extra 5 inches that we kept for the gathers. I placed it on the fabric which I had already cut, and I cut off the excess fabric. You can do this step at the start to avoid this additional step. Now that you have your back pattern ready, place it on the fabric and cut it, and follow the same with the sleeves as well. Also cut the lining material for the front and the back border section in the same way. Now for the waistband, cut a long strip of height at 3 inches, and for the width, measure your waist round. Mark it on the fabric and cut the same. Cut the waistband of the lining material as well. Let's start with the front borders. Pin the lining layer on the main fabric with the front sides facing each other. Now we need to stitch a straight line along the top edge. Turn the borders to the right side and press the stitch flat, which would make it easier to stitch the loop for the elastic band and also keep it in place. To create the loop for the elastic, mark half an inch from the top edge, draw a straight line and stitch along this line. Measure your arm to arm chest width and cut the elastic of that length. The another mistake from my end was that I took 1 inch less from the actual measured length, which didn't give a proper fit. So just take 0.5 inches less from the actual measurement from the neckline for the elastic band. Attach a safety pin at one end and insert it within the loop. Make sure to pin the other end of the elastic band. At the bottom edge of the borders, we will be creating gathers. So stitch a straight line with the longest stitch length and the stitch extension. Take one end of the fabric and start gathering the borders. Sandwich the borders between the lining and the main fabric of the waistband. This will create a neat look on the inside. Stitch and overlock these edges. Now for the back section, follow the same steps as the front section. And here is another mistake I had to correct. The back borders of the top ended up being too loose, so I had to seam rip the sleeves and alter the back neckline. So make sure you measure your arm to arm back measurement and mark it on your borders and cut the back armhole accordingly before you stitch the sleeves to the borders. Attach the lining and the main fabric of the back borders. Now we'll be creating the darts to give the top a more fitted look. Since I had the extra fabric for the back borders, I could create the darts. So when you are creating the back pattern in the initial stage, make sure to add 1 inch on both the sides for the darts. Now mark the midpoint. From the midpoint, take up to 3.5 inches on both the sides and draw a straight line. Mark the length of the darts up to 3 inches. For the darts, mark 0.5 inches on either side of the line and connect the points, forming a triangle. First, you need to stitch the straight line. It will help you to keep the lining and the main fabric in place. Now fold along this line and stitch the dart in the triangle shape and lock the edges. Sandwich the back borders and the waistband as followed earlier. Now let's join the front and the back borders together. For this, place and pin the front and back borders on the side seams. Stitch along the side seam on one side. Make sure to overlock these edges. And for the other side, we will be attaching the zipper. We will come back to this at the end. Before we attach the zipper, let's create the last section of the top. For this, cut a strip of length 3 inches. And for the width, add 9 to 10 inches to your waist measurement. So here, due to the shortage of fabric, I had to attach an additional section of the fabric so that I could cover the entire waist round. Stitch along the top edge of the section to create the gathers with the longest stitch length. Attach this layer to the top and make sure to overlock the seams. Now, for the end seam of the top, double fold up to 0.5 inches and iron it flat. It will be easier to stitch the seam. Let's come back to the zipper. With the longest stitch length, stitch the side seam. Now pin your zipper towards the middle of the seam and stitch it in place. I do this to avoid the zipper from moving while finishing the stitch for the invisible zipper. Now seam rip those loose stitches which we had done earlier. Take your zipper foot and stitch as close as you can to the zipper. I know this is a really long method, but it gives you a good finish and a perfect invisible zip. Stitch the side seam of the sleeves and overlock these seams. Attach the sleeve to the borders on the underarm area. Take 2 bias strips and attach it to the sleeve to create a loop for the elastic band. We need to attach the bias tape from the armhole to the shoulder seam. Top stitch the bias tape to keep it in place and for a crisp edge. Now fold the side seams of the strip and stitch it in place. Leave a gap of an inch to insert the elastic band at the point where the neckline meets the sleeve. Do this on the front and the back point as well. Fold the end seams of the sleeve and iron it flat. Then fold it again up to half an inch, creating a loop for the elastic band. Stitch the end seam of the sleeve, leaving a gap to insert the elastic. For the shoulder elastic, you will need to measure from your front neckline to your back neckline. Reduce half to 1 inch of this measurement, and that will be your measurement for your shoulder elastic band. Insert the elastic band and pin it in place so that it does not move. Here I'm seam ripping few stitches since I had forgotten to keep the gap on both the sides. Make sure to stitch the elastic band in place. Stitch the gaps close on both the ends. For the end seam of the sleeve, measure your arm round. Insert the elastic band and make sure to spread the gathers evenly. Stitch the band together with a zigzag stitch. Stitch the gap close and you're done. Do try out this pattern and let me know if you all have liked the video. Thank you.